The wrestling gimmick. Do not pretend it can't make your career. I mean, we have seen people who are pretty decent become monster stars because they understand the non-wrestling part of wrestling. It all counts. Given that the industry can be cyclical and rather self-aware, lots of individuals then try and take advantage of this, which is what we're going to talk about today, because maybe you see one gimmick and feel like you can do it too, or maybe it's bestowed upon you. I am Simon Miller. Let's go. Number 15, the Rockers and the Rock and Roll Express. I mean, the name kind of gives it away. I'm not saying that Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels just lifted what Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson were doing, as both did rule, but the inspiration was there. It was high energy, bright colors, and most importantly, they changed the game. People really do forget how important the Rockers were in the 1980s, especially to the WWF. As Vince McMahon tried to tap into a new audience here, you had two guys that felt like they connected to a young audience and were changing the game. Look at the amount of people who basically saw their style and went, you know what? I'd like to be a wrestler myself. None of it is possible though without the Rock and Roll Express, because my gosh, they were good. The way they sold and their explosive hot tag made them beloved babyfaces for years. I mean, even today they're still going and they just get it. They could be the best team of all time. What we are going to get into today, however, is kind of what happened in reverse with the Rockers, as while they were following the new generation also followed them, or something the other way around.
I'm sorry, what?
What I'm trying to get at as I speak gibberish to you is that over in WCW, Morton actually turned on Gibson, and then 6 months later, we did the barbershop angle with Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. Now, that was an all-timer and launched Shawn's singles career, but was there something to this? It smelt a bit fishy. WCW then undid the rock and roll split idea because it was a terrible idea. That was not the same in the World Wrestling Federation. My gosh, they never looked back. Number 14, the Ultimate Warrior and his One Warrior Nation. The career of the Ultimate Warrior is fascinating to look back on today because it's mad. The rise culminated after WrestleMania 6, and then within a few months, Vince McMahon changed his mind and down the card he went. He was still a huge star, but let's just face it, he was not the next Hulk Hogan. It got so bizarre from a fan's point of view, as when the Warrior returned to the company after an absence, he had a new haircut and a smaller physique, so some people thought this was a different human being under the face paint. There was even a rumor the original Warrior died. It was bonkers. It was when he got to WCW in 1998 where we got our first rip-off, because the powers that be decided they were going to have Renegade, who was just the Ultimate Warrior. I mean, he was even billed as the Ultimate Surprise. That's just trolling the audience. The real Warrior would then indoctrinate him into his One Warrior Nation group, which made no sense because it was meant to be a One Warrior Nation. It then gets totally weird because in 2008, a dude started to bill himself as One Warrior Nation. Not sure why the former Jim Hellwig was good with this, but it seems like between then and 2013, he had 26 matches. By Jove, he got away with it. I still don't know if promotions wanted to trick the fans or if it was just a strange rip-off, but it didn't make sense and it did not work. I mean, the Ultimate Warrior was limited in the ring, but the rest of the presentation got him to the very top. All I'm going to say is that did not happen here. Number 13, Ric Flair and Buddy Landel. So this actually started with the very public falling out between Shane Douglas and Ric Flair. Douglas has always taken umbrage with how Flair booked him during his WCW run, and this also likely tied into the time Shane won the NWA title in ECW, and he threw the former belt on the floor. He also said the National Wrestling Alliance was a joke and that the ECW championship was the future. I mean, he wasn't 100% wrong. The very odd connection, however, comes when Douglas was in the WWF, and yep, that was bad too. Not only did the clique not like him, which is the end of you in the mid-90s, but he was made a teacher. I mean, some of these gimmicks that Vince McMahon threw out there were the end. Just before the In Your 5 house match between Douglas and Ahmed Johnson, though, Shane announced a replacement instead, and it was Buddy Landel. For some reason, Landel had the big robe, came out to a very recognizable theme, and check that hair, my friends. He was even dubbed as the Nature Boy. It was quite clear what we were doing here. Now, Rick had gotten that nickname from Buddy Rogers, so I guess all is fair game. It was a rip-off, though, and basically WWF taking a shot at their rivals. Just goes to show the war existed far longer than just the battle on Monday nights. Number 12, Scott Steiner and Little Petey Pump. So this one was planned. You can see in the image that Petey Williams is stood next to Scott Steiner, and yep, they are dressed the same. They're even wearing the same chainmail, which is still an odd choice of wardrobe all these years later. I'm not sure dubbing him Little Petey Pump was the best idea because one, no one could ever be the size of Scotty, and two, don't call wrestlers little when you could figure that one out. This was back in 2007 when they both ended up with Feast or Fired briefcases, forming this unlikely alliance. They then sort of feuded before Steiner walked away with both bits of luggage and against all odds 2008. Now this actually all came together quite nicely, and I would presume that Steiner liked Williams because not only was there constant respect, but Scott even crowned him with that chainmail, some sort of weird acknowledgement ceremony. TNA then threw this all away when Steiner joined the main event mafia, but it did feel like Petey at least found that extra piece to his puzzle. Plus, he had the Canadian Destroyer, which was a revelation at the time. I mean, you will only understand that if you're not a new wrestling fan, but believe you me, we all went nuts. Number 11, Black Machismo and Randy Savage. So TNA quite clearly enjoyed looking backward to move forwards because Jay Lethal also got in on the act. He essentially showed the world that he did a great Macho Man impression, so boom, go and be that guy on TV. He did, and it worked against every logical metric. It was damn entertaining. This was also 2007 and even had Kevin Nash gifting him wrestling gear in order to sign off on this, which led us to Black Machismo, with Jay Lethal still getting a little bit of Jay Lethal in there. I mean, he had built up quite the moveset over the years, so Jay pushed these two things together. Now, I just want to apologize because I said moveset. The peak came at No Surrender when he defeated Kurt Angle for the X Division title, and then it went weird. Teaming him with SoCal Val made sense, but the following was a very odd feud with Sonjay Dutt to win Cal's affections. Felt a little bit too on the nose. He did this really until 2011 when he did a hard reset in Ring of Honor, but again, doing these sort of wink and nod gimmicks is so hard to pull off. Flipping Jay Lethal went and did it. Number 10, the Road Warriors and Demolition. So this story is the best. Vince McMahon wanted to hire the Road Warriors. Animal and Hawk said no, so Vince McMahon just made his own version. Welcome Demolition. When you do know that, the face paint and unique look becomes even more, and the best part is, it clicked. By no means should that have happened, but Axe and Smash was so damn good, nobody was thinking about the future Legion of Doom after a while. They just loved this act. Demolition would go on to win the WWF Tag Team titles 3 times as well, and of course became the longest reigning champions for years until the New Day stopped them. The only reason they broke up is because Hawk and Animal did come in. That sort of muddied the waters. It is such an awesome success story though, because they were told they were copycats and they still made it on their own. That's a proper worker. Number 9, Dave Meltzer and Little Davey Meltzer. This one was stupid. Went down in the UWF in 1990, and I suppose promoter Herb Abrams was sick of the reporting from Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. I mean, what better way to show that you don't care than by doing a squash match with the enhancement talent being called Little Davey Meltzer. I mean, this wasn't subtle at all. It was also Dr. Death Steve Williams of all people who wrecked him, and Herb was on commentary with Bruno Sammartino. Not sure he was into that, but Abrams seemed to take pleasure in just saying how stupid Dave was. You will not be surprised to hear the real Meltzer took all of this in stride. I would imagine he took it as a compliment. Adam Michaels was the wrestler to portray it, and can you imagine being told that? Sort of pigeonholed by that point. We want you to be a parody version of a well-known journalist we don't like. I mean, you ain't gonna main event WrestleMania. Number 8, Penta and Penta Oscuro. Go and read about the lore of Penta in Lucha Underground, because my gosh, you will see how deep they actually went with this character. I mean, if we were going to go all in, we'd have to make a whole video about it. It's ridiculous. The short version, though, is that he was meant to be an absolute killer. He lost early on in his career, so started ripping arms off his opponents as some sort of wrestling trophy. Penta then went and had some of the most insane matches in that promotion, so yeah, I can buy that. The dude is crazy. Vampiro was then revealed as the mastermind of all this, which then, for some reason, gave us Penta Dark, an even more flubbed up version of the man. Of course, years after this, he would go on to join AEW and team with Brother Phoenix before winning the tag titles and then losing them in 2022. This was then used as the reason to introduce Penta Oscuro, or Dark Penta, so yes, we'd gone back to the original idea. We got graves and people coming out of them and all of that, but really this was a lighter iteration of the persona, which is slightly ironic. I suppose nobody could actually go as far as Lucha Underground did, because that wasn't a mainstream company. AEW was a more refined take, and one that didn't really last that long. Felt like it was more for a bit of fun before Penta fell back into his old routine, but what? Doesn't matter. Not like it hurt him. And good grief, that man has flown ever since. Number 7, the Blue Meanie and Blue Tilly. I love the Blue Meanie. I've had a few conversations with him over the years, and the rumors are true. He is just a damn good dude. We are going to talk about the Blue WO in just 1 second as well. But actually, before then, let's go to TNA, because a Hardcore Justice in 2010, the promotion was paying homage to ECW, where we sort of got life repeating itself. Now, the BWO, and once again, give me 1 second, were part of that show too, because Stevie Richards, who was also part of the BWO, made his way to the ring, and he was backed up by James Tilquist, or the Blue Tilly. Guess what fans did? They booed him. I mean, they got the reference, but nope, we want the OGs or nothing. That's what happens when copyright gets in the way. And while TNA still wanted fans just to chant the well-known names, it's just so flipping convoluted. Really, this whole card was a mishmash of ideas and sort of summed up TNA in 2010. It was all over the place. Number 6, the BWO, is the NWO. So let us just talk about it. We can't just tease, and this was an act of genius from ECW, really. They did not care. If something was funny, they were going to do knew it. So in 1996, to try and get some of the entertainment back, the Blue Meanie as the Blue Guy, Stevie Richards as Big Stevie Cool, and Nova as Hollywood Nova came together. They wore blue. Can figure out the rest. This lot had mocked the band Kiss before settling here too, and the best part is it worked. Maybe that's where the weirdness comes from, because in any other promotion I'm not sure it would have done, but fans loved this, and it actually took Stevie Richards all the way to the main event. It's as ridiculous as you would imagine too, because they weren't pretending that it wasn't. Such a wonderful example of how to get any gimmick over. Just embrace it and know where you're coming from. This really was pretty good. Number 5, Sunny and Tammy Lynn Bitch. This one was pure Paul Heyman in the mid-90s. He would introduce Dawn Marie and said she was now called Tammy Lynn Bitch. And yes, Bitch was spelt B-Y-T-C-H. She was positioned next to Lance Storm in 1998. And of course her rival was Sunny from the WWF, who was called Tammy Lynn Cinch. It also had a Y. Tammy was valeting Chris Candido, so we did have a standoff. And let's not pretend how they were portrayed whatever happened today. And even Heyman stopped with this idea because he thought it was ridiculous. Before long, she was just Dawn Marie, and actually went on to do pretty damn great there. It was important too because having that last name was always going to hold you back a bit. A passing joke, it's fine. I suppose. Actually, it was a bit dumb. Number 4, Razor Ramon, HG. Look at this image. In no way does that look like Razor Ramon. Hilariously, that is the point. Because go and Google Masaki Summertan. For some reason, he decided he was just going to start calling himself Razor Ramon. He even added the HG to avoid issues. And while you may think it's a television resolution, it actually stood for Hot Guy. This was crazy. Most of this went down in Promotion Hustle, which was totally unhinged in the mid-2000s, and old Razor here was wearing PVC gear and entered to the ring to live in Da Vida Loca. He also loved to thrust, and I don't really think that should come as a surprise. A lot of people actually did enjoy this guy. Between 2005 and 2024, he had a ton of matches that were sort of alright. So he had a stupid name, but he was far from stupid. This is just bizarre. I mean, you stole somebody's name because you liked it, I suppose. That's totally nuts. Number 3, another Razor Ramon and Diesel. So you all know this story from 1996, but you can't have a list like this and not include it. I mean, maybe you're not aware, and trust me, you need to be aware. But after Scott Hall and Kevin Nash had left for WCW in the mid-90s, Vince McMahon decided, well, it's not about the person that plays the gimmick, it's about the gimmick themselves. So why don't I go and find 2 other human beings, and they can just be Razor Ramon and Diesel, and nobody will care. The truth was, everybody cared. And after Jim Ross, who was a heel at the time, which was also a terrible idea, teased for weeks that he did have a big surprise, out came Rick Bogner and Glenn Jacobs, who of course was going to be Kane in the future. They were pretending to be Big Sexy and the bad guy, and honestly, it was absolutely terrible. I mean, not only did the audience turn on this near instantly because they felt like they'd been trolled, but poor Rick Bogner's career was basically ruined by this. He never really got another proper gig again. Even the World Wrestling Federation eventually killed this off because they realized this had not gone to plan. Although really, it's one of those times where actually this was a good thing. It's like when you fall over and scratch your knee. You're like, okay, well, how did I fall over? Let's make sure that never happens again. And this taught Vince McMahon, don't just take people and make them play other people, because even me saying that out loud sounds absolutely ridiculous. Thank goodness Glenn Jacobs did go on to find the Big Red Machine too, because he was basically on the chopping block during this time. He was also going to be a wrestling dentist. I mean, that one was stupid too. Number 2, Kane and Imposter Kane. The real crazy thing about this is that WW had tried this before in the mid-90s with Undertaker versus Undertaker. And yes, we're going to talk about that in about 25 seconds. Your take on this really does depend on your age, because if you were a kid, this was awesome. If you're an adult, not so much, and that does win here. I mean, look at the numbers from SummerSlam 1994. The people who could drop the cash did not drop it. Still, 12 years later in 1996, the imposter version of Kane arrived, and of course he went after real Kane. This was around the time the actual Big Red Machine was having a meltdown over the date, May 19th. That was when his new movie was coming out. For some reason, Kane didn't like it, and it even ruined his partnership with The Big Show. By this time, OG Kane had removed that mask, so his doppelganger returned with the first design, and really this just descended into a series of brawls. If you care, it was being portrayed by Luke Gallows, and after one Kane versus Kane match, WWE shelved the whole thing because, yep, it was bad. Literally 24 hours after that fight, Kane killed his would-be number 2 and unmasked him. He was done. So who the flub knows what was meant to happen here? Whole thing was bonkers. Number 1, Undertaker and Undertaker. All right, fine, let's get in deeper, because I guess if you are talking about bizarre rip-offs, this is number 1. And don't forget the WWE was so pumped for this, it was the main event at SummerSlam 1994. We put Brett versus Owen for the title in the opener. This all came back off a mad angle too, because at the Royal Rumble, Yokozuna and a lot of other heels had thrown the dead man into a casket when we saw him emerge to the skies in one of the funniest videos ever. Again, it was so damn cool when you were a kid. The Undertaker was immortal. The idea was to give give Mark Calloway some time off and make sure Yoko felt like a warrior. When it was time to instigate the return, yep, an investigation was launched by Lieutenant Frank Drebin from the Naked Gun movies. That's true too, I am not joking. Ted DiBiase then brought in a new Undertaker, but this was meant to be the real Undertaker, even though it definitely wasn't the Undertaker. It was Brian Lee, who I guess did an okay job, but look, it did not work. Watching the match today sort of does show you it was just a little bit dull, but that's when you gotta make yourself a child again. I wasn't judging work rate when I was 7, just thought this was amazing. How was there 2 of them? So I've always got to tread carefully. It's not actually a one rule for them all. Know of any other mad gimmicks that basically ripped off other gimmicks? Then make sure you leave us a comment below before you like the video, share the video. Please do subscribe. You can also click the video on the screen to get even more wrestling information in your life. But otherwise, my friends, I appreciate you. And I will talk to you again on the next one.